On the school open day, Rachel noticed me walking down the hallway. She smiled for a moment and started to wave, but then quickly returned to a serious expression and lowered her hand. It seemed like she wanted to talk to me, her mother, but something inside was holding her back. We used to be so close, going shopping together and laughing, but lately, Rachel had been shutting herself in her room and no longer showed me her smile. Still, I felt a little relieved knowing she seemed to be enjoying herself with her classmates at school. After the homeroom session ended and the students began leaving the classroom, I hurried over to her homeroom teacher. Although I only knew Rachel at home, I thought her teacher might have noticed changes in her behavior or feelings. I was nervous about hearing Rachel's true thoughts, but since I had decided to protect and raise her, I knew this was something I couldn't avoid. "Miss Wilson, I'm sorry to bother you when you're busy, but I was hoping to talk to you for a moment."
Betty, perfect timing. I also needed to talk to you.
She glanced around to make sure no one was watching and led me to the home economics room in a separate building.
There's a reason I brought you here, Betty. The truth is, it's about Rachel.
Taking a knife out from a shelf, she began to reveal the truth about Rachel, and it was far beyond anything I could have imagined. "My name is Betty, and I'm a 45-year-old nurse. I live with my husband, Jacob, who works at the local city hall, and our daughter, Rachel. On weekends, my favorite thing to do is go grocery shopping with Rachel at a nearby store. We chat about our favorite pop stars or comedians, and sometimes a familiar store clerk will strike up a conversation."
You two are such a lovely mother-daughter pair.
She's the best mom ever.
Rachel always says with a smile, and it warms my heart. In our neighborhood, people know us as a close mother-daughter duo, and I had always hoped this relationship would continue forever. The truth is, Rachel and I aren't biologically related. Jacob was married before, and Rachel is his child from his previous marriage. Even so, I've lived under the same roof with Rachel for about 10 years now, and I see her as my own daughter. When parents divorce, it's often said that it's rare for the father to gain custody of the children. However, Jacob managed to obtain custody of Rachel due to some unusual circumstances. Apparently, Rachel's biological mother had repeatedly yelled at her and even physically hurt her shortly after she was born. Although I don't know all the details, Rachel suffered greatly, both physically and emotionally. It wasn't until a concerned neighbor reported the situation to the authorities that the police and child services intervened, making Jacob, who had been prioritizing his work, finally realize Rachel's plight. When I first met Jacob, he often lamented how he had failed as a father.
"It's my fault for focusing on work and leaving all the parenting to her."
I met Jacob and Rachel when Jacob came to the hospital where I work as a patient. At first, our relationship was just nurse and patient, but as we had more casual conversations, we naturally grew closer to each other. Eventually, as we started to think about marriage, Jacob opened up to me about Rachel's past. The first time I met Rachel, she was just 3 years old. She was clutching a teddy bear Jacob had given her as a birthday present and refused to let it go. "Hi, Rachel. It's nice to meet you." When I reached out my hand for a handshake, Rachel instinctively pulled hers back.
Are you going to hit me, Betty?
The moment I saw Rachel asking in a trembling voice, it felt like my chest was being crushed. "No, of course not. You're a good girl, Rachel. I would never hit a good girl."
Really? You won't hit me or throw water on me?
I hugged her trembling little body and whispered softly into her ear, "I'll protect you, Rachel." As she buried her face in my chest and sobbed, I stroked her head and made a vow to make her happy no matter what. "You can call me Mom if you'd like." Rachel seemed a little cautious. It was understandable, given the hardship she had endured from her biological mother. Even so, I wanted to spend as much time with Rachel as I could on my days off. At night, I would lie next to her and read storybooks until she fell asleep.
Stop. Mom, I'm scared.
Sometimes, her past experiences would surface in her dreams, and she would cry in her sleep. I can't say for certain if my efforts paid off, but Rachel gradually began to open up, and eventually, she started initiating conversations with me.
Hey, Mom, today Zoe from my class said.
After overcoming her difficult past, Rachel grew into a cheerful and innocent child by the time she started elementary school, always smiling. Because of my job as a nurse, my schedule is inevitably irregular. Even so, on days when I wasn't home or got back late, Rachel would often take the initiative to cook or help with household chores.
So, Mom, this Sunday you're off work, right? I was thinking of inviting my friends, and we could all go to the amusement park.
Rachel and I were so close that, eventually, Jacob started to feel a bit jealous of our relationship.
Hey, Rachel. How about chatting with your dad sometimes, too?
He said it with such a lonely expression that I couldn't help but laugh. Rachel would sometimes go quiet whenever Jacob came near. She was likely entering that tricky stage when some girls find it hard to connect with their fathers. Don't worry, I'll listen to Rachel's stories for you. I ended up responding in a joking manner as well. Though I felt a little bad for Jacob, I couldn't help but feel happy that Rachel seemed to trust me so deeply. However, about a month after Rachel started middle school, she suddenly became a different person, losing her cheerful energy. The drastic change in her surroundings from elementary to middle school was likely a factor. Even so, I felt deeply anxious that Rachel, who used to share even her smallest worries with me, had recently become so quiet. She still helped with cooking, cleaning, and laundry as usual. But the Rachel who used to laugh and talk about her day at school seemed to have disappeared. It used to be her habit to finish her homework and then sit beside me to watch TV dramas together. Now, aside from dinner and bathing, she would retreat to her room and lock the door. What's wrong with her? She doesn't talk to me about anything after school anymore and just shuts herself in her room. Something's not right. Unable to dismiss my worries, I brought it up to Jacob after he got home from work.
There's no need to overthink it. She's probably just at that age.
Jacob just laughed it off like it was someone else's problem and didn't address my concerns head on. If Rachel is struggling with fears or worries, I want to help her as her mother. When I first met Rachel, I made a vow to her and to myself that I would ensure her happiness no matter what. Yet now, not being able to notice her pain or do anything to help her made me feel so helpless and frustrated. Rachel, would you like to chat with me for a bit? I called out to her from outside her room, but Rachel didn't respond. I tried making a cake, but I'm not sure if it turned out well. I've got tea too. Want to come eat it with me? After a moment, the door opened slightly, and Rachel peeked out through the crack. Come here. You can talk to me about anything. Don't hold back. Rachel slightly opened her mouth to speak, but then closed it again and looked away. I didn't want to force the door open. I felt it was important to respect Rachel's feelings and let her decide when to open up. I resolved to wait patiently until Rachel chose to share her troubles with me on her own. Suddenly, I noticed Jacob standing behind me, watching. Rachel let out a small gasp, almost like a cry, and quickly slammed the door shut. Jacob, something is definitely wrong with Rachel. She's troubled by something.
Don't worry about it too much. By the way, if Rachel doesn't want the cake, can I have it?
I had hoped Jacob would help me think through the situation, but he didn't seem willing to face it seriously. I didn't know what else to do and found myself sighing constantly. Even when I came home from work, I no longer heard Rachel's bright and cheerful greetings. How long has it been since I last saw her smile? As I glanced at the calendar, my mind drifted to the past, trying to recall the last time Rachel had laughed. But thinking about it like this doesn't solve anything. No. What I need to do now is face Rachel as she is today. I forced a smile at my reflection in the mirror, trying to encourage myself. Even so, it was hard to say I successfully hid the exhaustion on my face. Will the day come when we can laugh together again, just like before? As I thought about this, my eyes were drawn back to the calendar. A large mark was on the last day of May, with the word school written on it. Oh, right, the letter from school in early May mentioned there'd be the open school that day. I opened the desk drawer and checked the paper. Sure enough, Rachel's school open day was just 2 days away. I've been so caught up worrying about my relationship with Rachel that I almost forgot about it. I looked at myself in the mirror again and scolded my own weakness. If you can't pull yourself together, who will? You need to be strong if you're going to protect her. Since I've only seen Rachel at home, I have no idea what she's usually like at school. I thought that her homeroom teacher might have noticed any changes in Rachel's behavior. These days, the school open day is designed to accommodate families' schedules, allowing visits at any time, which was helpful for someone like me with irregular hours. At Rachel's middle school, parents could visit at any time on the scheduled day. Although I was off work that entire day, I decided to avoid the morning and go in the afternoon. If I wanted to have a thorough discussion with her homeroom teacher, it would be more convenient for both of us to talk after school. As much as I was afraid of learning Rachel's true feelings, I resolved that this was something I couldn't avoid if I was committed to protecting and raising her. On the day of the school open day, as I walked down the hallway, Rachel noticed me. For a moment, she smiled and started to wave, but then her expression quickly turned serious, and she lowered her hand. It seemed like she wanted to talk, but was holding herself back for some reason. Watching her behavior, I was overwhelmed with a vague sense of unease. Even so, once class began, Rachel responded to the teacher's call with the brightest voice of anyone in the room and read her essay with enthusiasm. She appeared to get along well with her classmates, occasionally chatting so much that the teacher had to remind her to focus. Seeing Rachel manage well at school eased my worries a little. After class ended, I stayed at the school, waiting for homeroom to finish. When it was over and the students started leaving the classroom, I quickly approached Rachel's homeroom teacher, Miss Wilson. Miss Wilson, I'm sorry to bother you when you're busy, but I was hoping to talk to you for a moment.
Betty, perfect timing. I also needed to talk to you.
Miss Wilson replied as she hurried toward me. She glanced around, as if checking for prying eyes, then lowered her voice and led me to the home economics room in a separate building. If privacy was the concern, surely there were closer options than the home economics room.
There's a reason I brought you to this room.
Judging by her serious expression, I could tell this wasn't going to be a cheerful conversation.
Has anything changed at home recently with Rachel?
The sudden question left me at a loss for how to respond. As she mentioned, Rachel had indeed been withdrawn lately, no longer showing the cheerful demeanor she used to have around me. And yet, I hadn't been able to connect with her or support her through whatever was troubling her. This moment painfully reminded me of my shortcomings as a mother. While I struggled for words, Miss Wilson glanced around again to make sure no one was nearby. She then retrieved a kitchen knife from the preparation room.
Actually, something happened with Rachel during last month's in class.
She began recounting a puzzling incident that Rachel had experienced. Toward the end of April, the students had a cooking class in their home economics period. As the home economics teacher, Miss Wilson had pre-selected the ingredients to be used, but allowed the students to decide on the dishes they wanted to make. At first, everyone started cooking happily, but after a while, concerned voices from one group's cooking station could be heard. When she went over, she found Rachel crouched on the floor, looking distressed and overwhelmed. This was particularly shocking to Miss Wilson, as Rachel had always been a bright, outgoing student, often the one making everyone laugh in class. When she asked the students in the group what had happened, they explained that Rachel had been happily preparing the food at first, but the moment one of the students picked up a knife, Rachel suddenly started trembling.
Do you think Rachel might have had a traumatic experience involving knives?
Miss Wilson asked cautiously, choosing her words carefully. Hearing this, only one possibility came to mind. I remembered Jacob telling me that before I met Rachel, she had suffered severe mistreatment from her biological mother. Apparently, there were times when her mother would point a knife at Rachel and hurl cruel words at her. Even so, since Rachel had been with me, she had never shown fear around knives. On the contrary, she had often helped with cooking in my place when I was busy with work, even using knives when necessary. I've heard about her past with her biological mother, but for the past several years, she hasn't shown any fear like that. I explained everything openly, from Rachel's relationship with her mother to how our blended family had been living since Jacob and I were married. No matter how much I thought about it, I couldn't figure out why Rachel had suddenly developed a fear of knives.
This might not be my place to intrude on a family's privacy, but
Miss Wilson carefully chose her words, glancing around even more nervously than before. That's okay. Please tell me anything. At this point, understanding Rachel's emotional struggles was far more important than concerns about privacy.
it might be a good idea to be cautious around Jacob.
She spoke with a serious expression. What do you mean by being cautious around Jacob? I was confused to hear Jacob's name brought up so suddenly. What could have possibly happened between Rachel and Jacob?
Rachel was trembling and repeatedly said, "I'm sorry, Dad," while crying. Not just once. She said it over and over, as if she were being scolded by her father.
As she recounted the scene, tears welled up in her eyes. Rachel said that. The truth revealed by Miss Wilson left me speechless. After my conversation with Miss Wilson ended and I walked out through the front gate, Rachel came running after me.
Mom, wait.
Rachel, I thought you had already gone home.
I saw you go to the home economics room with Miss Wilson earlier.
I couldn't think of anything to say right away, and an awkward silence filled the air. Are you enjoying school? Unable to bear the silence, I asked a safe, neutral question.
It's fun. Everyone's really kind.
From her voice, it didn't seem like she was avoiding talking to me. Shall we walk home together for the first time in a while?
Yeah.
Rachel nodded with a radiant smile, just like before. On the way, we stopped by our usual grocery store to buy ingredients for dinner. Will you help me make dinner tonight?
Sure. But only if we make my favorite pasta tonight.
As we divided the shopping bags between us, I felt a deep sense of happiness in being able to have these casual, everyday conversations with Rachel again. Hey Rachel, I just had a little chat with Miss Wilson earlier. Rachel, who was walking slightly ahead of me, began to slow her pace. She had always been a smart child, and it seemed like she had a sense of what I was about to say. Even so, she kept her smile, though her voice dropped as she asked,
What did you talk about?
about the cooking class and how you were trembling when you saw the knife.
Oh, that. Yeah, about that.
Rachel's smile suddenly became awkward. She seemed to be trying to maintain her usual cheerful expression, but her pain was evident, and her steps grew smaller. Eventually, she stopped walking altogether, turned to face me.
I hate it. I was so scared. I just want to forget about it, but I keep remembering.
She began to cry, large tears streaming down her face. Before I could ask her what had happened, my body moved on its own, and I pulled Rachel into a tight embrace. It's okay now, Rachel. I'll always be here for you. Clinging to me with all her strength, Rachel cried like a little child, unable to stop for a long time. I even forgot about the grocery bags we had dropped on the ground. I didn't ask her anything, choosing instead to patiently wait until she calmed down on her own. After about 5 minutes, Rachel finally steadied herself and spoke hesitantly.
Mom, this is something Dad told me I must never talk about, but
One day after her elementary school graduation ceremony, Rachel was planning to attend a sleepover graduation party at her friend's house. However, Rachel realized she had forgotten the teddy bear she always hugged while sleeping, so she went back home to retrieve it. At the time, I was at work, so only Jacob was supposed to be at home. When Rachel arrived, it was already dark outside, yet the house lights were off. As she opened the front door, she noticed a pair of high heels she had never seen before. The strong scent of perfume filled the air, accompanied by the sound of whispered voices coming from the bedroom. Although the house was completely dark, light was inexplicably leaking from the bedroom. Unable to understand what the situation meant, Rachel called out to Jacob, who she assumed had already come home. At first, she thought Jacob was simply watching TV alone in the bedroom. When Jacob noticed Rachel's presence, he panicked and tried to stop her. But by then, Rachel had already entered the bedroom and witnessed something she should never have seen. There, Jacob was embracing a young woman Rachel didn't recognize, and they were kissing. Both Jacob and the woman quickly separated, but even as a child, Rachel understood exactly what was happening. Overwhelmed, Rachel forgot about the teddy bear and tried to run out of the house.
Stop. Don't run away.
However, the moment Jacob's angry voice yelled at her from behind, Rachel froze in place, unable to move, as if she had turned to stone.
That voice of Dad's. It sounded just like Mom's from before.
Jacob grabbed a knife from the kitchen and pointed it at Rachel, who was frozen in place at the front door.
If you tell Betty about this, you know what will happen, don't you? I'll send you back to that woman.
He said that while pointing the tip of the knife at her. By that woman, Jacob was referring to Rachel's biological mother, who had repeatedly mistreated her.
I felt so sorry for you, Mom. I couldn't forgive Dad for betraying you. But I was too scared to say anything. I'm sorry.
As the memory of that moment resurfaced, Rachel's body tensed with fear and anxiety. "It's okay now. I'm here for you," I said, holding her tightly to keep her grounded and away from the terror of her past. Rachel had endured traumatic experiences in her childhood, including being threatened with a knife by her biological mother. Jacob, fully aware of this, had deliberately used the same tactic to threaten her. I found myself more furious at Jacob for doing something he knew would deeply hurt Rachel than for his infidelity. "I'll always protect you." I whispered those words repeatedly into Rachel's ear as she sobbed uncontrollably in my arms. "Whatever it takes, I'll gather proof of Jacob's wrongdoing. I'll make sure Rachel never has to cry or suffer again." Once home, I immediately began preparing to confront Jacob. About 10 days later, I came home one evening after work. I was originally scheduled for a night shift, but a coworker's situation had changed it to a day shift. Of course, I had emailed Jacob about it, but given how distant he had grown toward me, I wasn't sure if he had even read the message. From the moment I approached the house, I sensed something was off. Usually, the porch light would be on after dark, but that evening, not only was the porch light off, but the entire house was pitch black. However, Jacob's car was in the garage, so someone had to be inside. As I opened the door, I was immediately hit by a strong smell of perfume and saw a pair of women's high heels. So, these must be the shoes Rachel mentioned. Just as I had suspected, Jacob had brought his mistress into the house, thinking I wouldn't be home. It seemed likely that Jacob hadn't even read the email I sent. Or perhaps he didn't care enough to remember its contents. Either way, the fact remained that he had betrayed me and brought his mistress into our home. Rachel did not seem to be in the house. I decided to text Rachel to check, and she quickly replied,
I'm at my friend's house, so don't worry.
The living room lights were also off, making it clear that Jacob was likely in our bedroom, enjoying time with his mistress. The thought that he had brought another woman into the bed where I slept made me feel a wave of intense nausea rising in my stomach. Still, for Rachel's sake, I fought against the nausea and quietly made my way toward the bedroom. "Who's there?" I flung open the bedroom door, and under the dim light, I saw a naked man and woman in an embrace.
What are you doing here? I thought you were working.
The mistress, frightened, covered herself with the sheets, while Jacob glared at me with a terrifying expression. I worked the day shift today. My night shift was rescheduled due to my coworker's schedule.
That's sneaky. You didn't tell me.
I emailed you. Looks like you didn't bother to read it. But honestly, accusing me of being sneaky while you're bringing your mistress into our bedroom when I'm not home? Jacob's misplaced anger left me speechless for a moment. I reached into my bag, pulled out a completed divorce agreement, and thrust it in front of him. I wasn't sure when to bring this up, but now seems like the perfect time. I want a divorce.
A divorce? Don't you think that's a bit extreme?
Your wrongdoing doesn't stop there. To make matters worse, you treated your own daughter, Rachel, so horribly. That's something I find even more unforgivable than your affair.
That's a misunderstanding. I don't know what Rachel told you, but I was just being a little strict out of love. You're blowing this out of proportion.
As I prepared for the divorce, I played my ultimate trump card. I didn't tell you, but I've installed surveillance cameras throughout this house.
That's an invasion of privacy. Even between a married couple, there are limits to what's acceptable.
This is my house too. What's wrong with installing security cameras in my own home? When I counted, Jacob couldn't respond. He just pouted and fell silent. Also, I will be taking custody of Rachel. There's no way I can leave her with someone like you.
Don't be ridiculous. She's my daughter. You're not even related to her by blood. The court will never allow it.
Then let's settle this in court. I have surveillance footage. Modern cameras are amazing, you know. The video is crystal clear. And the audio is perfectly recorded too. Jacob still looked dissatisfied, but he had no logical argument to counter and slumped in defeat. Eventually, our divorce was finalized, and I was awarded full custody of Rachel. Despite Jacob's resistance to giving up custody, the surveillance footage not only captured evidence of his infidelity, but also numerous instances of him threatening Rachel. Even after I installed the cameras, Jacob had apparently continued his harsh behavior toward Rachel regularly. Since Rachel's testimony aligned perfectly with the video evidence, Jacob's desperate excuses were dismissed entirely. I couldn't understand Jacob's motives. Why didn't he want to let go of Rachel? Without me or Rachel, he could have just lived happily with his mistress. To my surprise, it turned out that the mistress was a co-worker of Jacob's at the local city office. The incident became widely known in the community, undoubtedly reaching their workplace. It was likely that both of them would lose their jobs over this. I was able to claim compensation from both Jacob and his mistress, and Jacob's repeated threats toward Rachel also led to police involvement. After officially adopting Rachel, I moved into a new home. Compared to our previous house, it's certainly not spacious, but it's more than enough for the two of us to live comfortably. And best of all, it's only a few minutes walk from my parents' house. As a nurse, my irregular work hours made the support of my parents invaluable. They had known Rachel since she was little and treated her as if she were their own granddaughter, showering her with love and care. Right after Jacob and I got divorced, Rachel, trying not to cause me any trouble, forced a strained smile and said,
I can live in a foster home if that's easier.
"If you keep making such a fake smile, you'll ruin your cute face." I pulled Rachel into a tight hug. Kids shouldn't be worrying about their parents. Remember our promise? I told you I'd protect you.
But if I stay with you, won't I just make you unhappy?
My happiness is for me to decide. If you're happy, that's my happiness. You might not understand that yet, but you will someday. I gave her a playful smile and gently tapped her nose with my finger.
Oh, come on. Stop treating me like a kid.
Rachel said, finally showing me her carefree, innocent smile again. There it is. That's the face I've been wanting to see. Your real smile, Rachel. From now on, let's be happy together. Just the two of us.
I don't want to ever leave you. I'll never let you go, Mom.
With that, Rachel hugged me back with all her strength. On nights when I don't have work, Rachel and I cook dinner together. Watching her cheerful face as she cuts vegetables with a big smile, I sometimes find myself stopping to think. I want to make her happy, maybe this feeling. This is what people call love.
Mom, you're spacing out again.
Being scolded by Rachel, I suddenly felt embarrassed for letting my mind wander with unnecessary thoughts.